Life is a book and we fill the pages. Stay the course to your story and write your own chapters in life. In this world that's filled with so much noise and information, how do we really stand out and be who we were really meant to be? In this podcast, we focus on injecting you with positivity, optimism, and strategies, all centered around helping you be who you were always meant to be in business and life. Be inspired to show up in your own skin to learn strategies, habits, and skills from others as we share our own life journeys and stories. There's no other you, and you know yourself better than anyone else. So be prepared to take away habitual tidbits, tactics that will encourage you to pursue and live your life, not the one others want you to live. Welcome to Stand Out Be You, where you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be you. Hi there, Tequila Dodard here, and welcome to another episode of Stand Out Be You. I wanted to continue on this topic because, again, I think we are bombarded daily with so much information and with the life of others sharing their stories that we begin to lose focus on our own life. And in order for us to truly connect with who we are, we have to be true to who we really are, if that makes sense. With that being said, on our last life lesson, we focused on the art of storytelling, and I mentioned diving further into this topic. So today, it's just, again, you and me, and I'm going to speak about storytelling. Before I do, I want you to know there are people making changes in their lives, and they are taking life into their own hands and living it on their own terms. They are making their life different than it was a year ago. If you feel you're stuck, if you want something different in your life, if you want to look back a year from now and be glad you started something new, then I have a planner that will help you get started. You can go to tequiladodard.com/best year. And I'm going to say that again, tequiladodard.com/best year. And start living your next best year now. Okay, back to storytelling. I love to tell stories, and I live to listen to other individuals tell their stories. So I put together some storytelling tips that you can use when telling your story in business and life. So let's go ahead and get started. So number one, prepare a good personal story that explains your central values. So that's diving back into what matters to you most. Really thinking back to what your true values are. The next one is make your story as real as possible. There's no reason to make up stories or embellish. You are who you are, and people will relate to you because you are who you are. So look for opportunities to practice your story with friends or associates before actually telling your story to the world. So if you're in business and you're really trying to get your story out to the world, practice with family and friends before doing so. The next one is, what is the key moment that put you on the path that you're on right now today? Use that as your starting point. And the next one, give your story a good plot with a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know that we've been to the movie theaters and we've seen those fantastic movies. They all start with a beginning, a middle, and an end. So make sure that you do have your story set up in this particular format. The next one is create your story around a problem or challenge that you faced and explain how you did overcome that story. As you've heard me say on this podcast, we all are connected by our stories. So if you're able to really speak about that challenge that you faced and you're able to share how you came up with a plan or a solution and you overcame it, you're able to that much more attract individuals to you and your story. And streamline your story. cutting out the unnecessary details that are just not relevant or concise to what you're trying to do, maybe in your business or in that particular situation in your life. We all have a lot of stories in us, but you just have to, as everything else, organize those stories. Which brings me to the next one. Pay attention to your listeners' reactions when you're telling your story. So look at them, look at their body language, and use that as feedback for you to make the necessary changes with your stories. And the next one is, what are other people doing, or how are other individuals really conveying and telling their personal stories? And listen to it. And how did it make an impact on you? Use these same ideas to be able to wrap your story in a gorgeous bow and be able to share that gift with the world. And the last one is, let your story change and evolve over time as circumstances demand it. We're forever changing. Nothing is the same or stagnant in life. Life is situational and it's going to throw curveballs at us. So sometimes our stories may shift depending on how life is at that particular moment in time. So to review those tips that we just went through, I'm going to kind of reverse it in the mistakes that we should not do when we're telling our story. So the first one is making up the story. Try not to embellish, or let's just not embellish at all. Tell the true story of who you are and how you came to be the person that you are right now. The next one is boring your listener with stories that are overly long and too fact-filled rather than having emotions. And let's make sure that we're creating more than one story and that you're brushing up the story and you're improving it, because our stories, we have more than one. So we can actually tell this story at this particular moment that may be relatable to this individual or in this particular situation. So always make sure that you are working on really improving and brushing up on one story. And once you have that story, make sure that the next story is great as well. And the next one is, try not to make the story more shocking or amazing or more impressive than it should be. Just be real and be natural. Be yourself. And then giving too much information when it should actually only include the essentials. Give to the audience what they ask for. Give them exactly what they need. And then the next one is very important. Try not to hide the failures, because it's through our failures and our faults and our mistakes that we learn the most. And those failures end up being the great stories that people really hold on to and people relate to the most. And then the last one I want to leave you with is, remember to tell your story when it's appropriate. Make sure that you're finding the right opportunities to tell your story. So if it's an inappropriate time, hold it in because it's a good story. But if it's a great story and you tell it at the wrong time, it just will not be conveyed correctly. So there you have it. Speaking about top tips for storytelling that are wrapped around some of the mistakes that we actually do with storytelling. And as always, thank you for allowing me to really tell you my story and share with you my story over these particular episodes that have occurred, as well as listening to the stories that the guests have shared with us as well. And if you have a story that you would love to share here on the podcast, I am more than excited to have you on. You can always go to tequiladodard.com to apply to be on the show. And if you're making an impact and you are doing big things, well, it doesn't even have to be big things. If you are touching one person at a time, even inside of your community, we want to hear about it. So again, as always, remember to stand out, be you, and that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. Now go out there, share your story, and be great. Wait, are you still here? I'm glad that you are. Did you know that all the guests that you've heard here on the show are waiting to hear from you inside the Standout BU Society Facebook group? I'm waiting for you too. It's where we actually speak in more detail on the most important aspects of you being you in business and life. Come join us where we dive deeper into the topics that you've heard here on the show. Go to tequiladodard.com/community. We look forward to having you inside the society.